Today, we are going to talk with Cliff, the podcast answer man, about his opinions, and some of mine as well, about doing a Patreon page where your fans support you versus developing a business model around your content. That's coming up. Hey guys, my name is Tim Schmoyer, and this is Cliff Ravenscraft from the podcastanswerman.com. Thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Thanks, Tim. Glad to be here.
So, Cliff does Patreon, and I do Patreon, and I know a lot of you guys do also. If you're not familiar, just real briefly, it's a place where your community can go to support you financially based on podcasts you're producing, if you're Cliff, or videos you're producing, if you're me, based on the creations and the content that you're making. And so, Cliff, you've been doing Patreon for a little while. A common question that I get is, Tim, should I focus on Patreon or should I develop like a business model around my content that's selling stuff, products, materials, or whatever? What are the pros and cons of each that you've found for your business?
Well, I think if I were asked that question, I think I would probably ask, well, what is the purpose of the content that you're creating? Are you looking to just kind of add a little bit of side income because you're having fun with the content that you're sharing? Is it just because, I'm creating this content just to get my message out, to really have an influence and positive impact in people's lives? And I would do this if I wasn't making any income, but I'm doing it and might as well give people the opportunity to contribute or donate, if you will.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, if that's why you're creating content, then Patreon makes a ton of sense. If your goal is to make money to support yourself and or your family, chances are a majority of the people who are going to be watching this video, the best model is actually creating products or services where you're using your content that you're creating to really build a rapport with an audience so they can come to understand the value that you have to offer in your particular niche, and so that they come to know, like, and trust who you are and what you have to offer, and that they would actually use your content to warm them up to actually getting to the place where they feel comfortable buying your products or services.
A lot of creators, I think what they do, Cliff, is, and maybe some of you guys are guilty of this, is where, well, I'm just going to be a popular YouTuber. I'm just going to be really famous, and then I'm going to sell T-shirts and pens, and I'm going to sell, iPhone cases and just kind of swag merch like that. And you could do that. Again, I think you need to be pretty high level for that to be profitable, because you sell a T-shirt, you make maybe $5 or something, depending on the margins and things like that. However, though, I think it works best, and you can make more money, and you can serve people better and influence and change their lives if you know the like you said, the value that you're offering through your channel. Like, what is that value? In business, where they call it a value proposition. What is it that someone's subscribing to your channel for in the first place, or subscribing to your podcast if you're Cliff? And then I found it works best if the products and the services that you develop, the business model revolves around that same value. So if someone subscribes to me to get YouTube training, for me to turn around and sell them T-shirts might work for some people, like super fans. But if I sold like a YouTube training that's more integrated to the value that you guys subscribed for in the first place, that works a lot better. So I think you need to know two things. And Cliff, I think he agrees. One, you need to know what value you're providing. And two, who you're providing it to. Who's the target audience? Personally, I have a mix. I do have Patreon, but it's kind of a separate thing than my products. Are you combining the two a little bit?
I tried combining my big brand Podcast Answer Man with Patreon, and I decided to completely do away with that because I wanted everyone in my Podcast Answer Man community to know that I make my income from consulting, coaching, the products and services that I sell, that it's not a donation basis kind of model for Podcast Answer Man. Right. But I do have a different show called Pursuing a Balanced Life. It's been an audio journal I've been doing since 2005. There are 608 episodes of it. And there are about 1,700 people that listen to every single episode every week. Wow. And I did create a Patreon for that. And I'm like, listen, I don't need the money to continue to do this. I would probably do it anyway. But man, I would love to know if this would be something you guys are interested in contributing towards. Yeah. And don't make a lot of money from Patreon, but hey, it's enough to actually make sure that I'm there every single week and I don't miss a week anymore.
One of the things I found is that people actually sometimes want to give. Like, you're actually giving them a gift by giving them the ability to support you.
Absolutely.
And it's almost like, oh, I've been wanting to do this, Tim. Thank you. Like, you've been so helpful for me. And just this ability to give back a little bit. Like, I feel better about consuming your content now, kind of is what it feels like.
Absolutely. And, we were talking at lunch. One of my favorite books is called Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin. And he calls money certificates of appreciation. And so you're giving them the opportunity to give you a certificate of appreciation. And what I really like about Patreon is it's not like you're saying if you don't pay for this content, you don't get it. The reality is if you're going to get it anyway.
Right.
But man, by the fact that you pay for it, it gives me that extra incentive to get behind the camera, to get behind the microphone, to create the content, and everybody benefits as a result.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Do you do something like this? And if you do, how's it working for you? And what do you think the pros and cons are of doing a Patreon page as a creator here on YouTube versus, developing a business model? And if this is your first time here, you should also click on, while you're going down to the comments, stop halfway in the description box, and you'll find a link to podcastanswerman.com. And what will they find there?
Over at Podcast Answer Man, you're going to find things that will help you take your message, your business, and your life to the next level by creating content that has a powerful and positive impact in people's lives.
And if you're interested in hearing more about Patreon, you have a couple episodes about Patreon.
Yeah, matter of fact, there's a thing called a great way to browse my content. It's called a tag cloud. You'll see a bunch of subjects in the right-hand sidebar, and look for Patreon. It'll take you to all the episodes where I talk about Patreon and my experience.
Cool. And I'll try to put a link directly to it in the description also, so you guys can go check out that tag. So thanks for hanging out. This is your first time here. We'd love to have you subscribe. Every week we do videos just like this to help you guys out as creators who are developing your audiences and your message here on YouTube. I love helping you guys spread that so that as many people hear it as possible so that they can have their lives be changed by a result of the message that you are spreading. So thanks for hanging out. Subscribe for more of that. Go check out the Podcast Answer Man because he believes totally in that and is doing that over in his show as well. And we will see you guys again next week.